It's that time again. It's chocolate orange cover time. We've got a pussycat because I did have one of my subscribers say that they were interested in doing a cat, so I thought, why not? I'm a cat person myself as well, though we've got cats and dogs, but I thought this was quite cute. I was quite pleased how it turned out. We're using a double knit yarn. You can do any colour you want. You can do any sort of stripes. I've put a stripe in. You don't have to. You can just do it a solid colour. You could do a gorgeous black cat, or you could just do a ginger cat. You could do all sorts of combinations, whichever perhaps pets you got yourself. We have a 3.5mm crochet hook, so it's a nice size to be using. Got a pair of scissors there. In here, just a little bit of a selection, because as you can see, I did put felt in his ears. You don't have to. I've got 2 pieces of felt here, and I got some pink cotton. White works quite nicely as well. I've got black cotton because he's got these 2 little cute bead eyes. And I have a tiny bit of the black yarn. That's because it's just this detail on his sort of, I don't know what to call it. I've put a muzzle on my pattern, but they're almost like little cheeks, but they're not. This sort of the mouth. It's a really hard one to describe what they are. And obviously a little bit there. So you don't need much of the black yarn for that. I have a stitch marker. I've got my little Lily stitch marker today. So that's one of our own designs. And I've got my needles, and these are the little eyes I've used. Can you see them? There we go. Now, if it is a present for a younger person, perhaps sewing on beads is not always the best idea. Perhaps just stitch some little details on there rather than the beads. But I do think they do look quite cute. I'm finding that, to be honest, most people are buying making these for sort of, I don't know, sort of 7-8-year-olds up, because obviously because of the chocolate orange. So we're just going to get into it. I have my pattern at the side of me here. Let's move everything else out of the way. I'll keep the stitch marker out of that because I might need that. It does take maybe a little bit longer than some of the others. We're going to start with the light grey because it's all in double crochet. UK terms, remember. So we can slip him off so you can see what he's like. How cute is that? Just looking at that, when I've slipped it off, I'm wondering if it'll fit my smart doll. I think it might work, actually. That'd be quite a cute little doll hat. I might have to make one. Haven't done anything for the YouTube for my smart dolls for a while, so I really do need to get something done. And there's my chocolate orange, of course. So we'll flatten that out. There's still little bits on my table. Can you see? I should have wiped it down because I unboxed one of my new Cindy's this morning. So there's like little bits of plastic where they were tied in. So let's just get on to this. We have our slip knot onto the hook, not too tight, remember. Let's move that little stitch marker over there. Pattern is going to start like all of my patterns do if they are amigurumi. We're going to start with our 2 chain. So we have 1, we have 2. Into that first chain we're going to do 6 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, and you've guessed it, into each of those 6 now we're going to do 2 double crochets in each, giving us 12. If you're not sure which one it is this one, but count from the back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, and in we go. So 2 in there, 2 in each one, remember. So this is our second one for 2, our third one, our fourth, 2 more, we have 5, and our last one is our number 6. Right, I've not tightened the hole up yet, so let's tighten that up. If you have trouble with that and it won't tighten, you can always use this thread at the end and just sort of thread it through and pull it tight that way. Now, you can put your stitch marker in now if you are wanting to. I don't really think it's necessary. I've just moved my pattern. In fact, that makes it dark there, don't it? Yes, it does. How am I going to do it? I'll pop it down there. It's out of the way then. Just hope I don't slip on it when I stand up. We're going to again do 2 in each. So we have 12, so 2 in each, we're going to end up with 24. So off we go. So I'm just going to count the 12 this time. We've got 1. We have 2, so it's 2 in each. So I'm just counting the stitches I'm going in. So that's 3, 4, 5, that's 6, so that's halfway. 7, 8, 9, nearly there, 10, just 2 more after this one, 11, one, oh, I dropped it, that was 11, I've only done the 1 in that 11 one, so that's the second one in 11, and the last one being our 12. Now I am going to pop my stitch marker in now. Obviously if it's nice and quiet for yourself you can just count it, but stitch marker makes it easier if there's any other distractions. So let's just pop that in there. Put my hook back in, and we're going to need another increase round, but it's not 2 in each this time. It's 2 in the first one and then 1 in the following one. So we have a 2 in this one, a 1, a 2, a 1, all the way round. It actually does the set 12 times and it leaves you with 36 stitches. So I've got the stitch marker in, so I'm not going to overly worry about counting. All I know is I'm doing 2 in one, 1 in the next one, 2 in one, 1 in the next one, and I'm just going to repeat that round. Now you don't have to keep up with me, or if I'm going a little bit slower than yourselves, please sort of jump ahead with it by all means, and I'll sort of see you at the other end. If you're having a little bit of problem with the speed, there is a setting on your YouTube videos where you can actually slow it down for yourself. My voice will sound silly, but you don't really need to see my voice, even hear my voice. It's just sort of maybe seeing the stitches, especially if you're new to it. Just take your time. If you're a little bit unsure, let me just check what I've just done then. I did a 2 and a 1, didn't I? I do have a Amigurumi Basics tutorial for you to have a look at and sort of gets you into it a little bit. It's a very common style of crochet now because it's a spiral type of style, and it means you're not having to stop and start with joins, which is great. That was a single one I did. And then a 2. You can see it's going a little bit wavy. Don't worry about that. It will settle down when you do the rounds afterwards. And I'm back. Should I do one more? No, I do need another set. See, the thing is, if I was counting the sets, I'd have known that, wouldn't I? But I'm just relying on the stitch marker. So you should have had 12 sets of 2 in one and 1 in the next one to give you 36 stitches. My next round will start to flatten this little wavy bit out. It's just 1 double crochet into each stitch. So off we go. Again, I'm just going to rely on the stitch marker. I'm not counting. It is better if you can, because you need to make sure it's going to fit your orange, but that is something you do need to keep checking anyway, because everybody's tension's slightly different. I'm pretty average, I would have said. I don't think I'm one way or the other, but do check on your orange when we get to a certain point, because you might find you need less sort of rows here, or should I say rounds. Let's have a look. We're about halfway round now. You see it's starting to sort of flatten out that little bit. I mean, when it's stretched over the orange anyway, it'll flatten it out, but I know some people worry when they see it's going a little bit wavy, because sometimes if you increase a lot in an area, it will do that. That's how you get your shaping though, so it's a good thing. Sometimes just have a play with it, sort of see how it works. If you sort of increase more on one side than the other or something like that, you will get different shapes. Just having a quick check. Yes, we just double crochet around at the moment. There's going to be one more. There's only one more increase row. Round. I'm doing it again. Don't know why I'm saying rows, because it's very rare I work in rows, and most of my work is rounds. I'm going to do one more. Right, so we now got our last increase, and it's only going to increase by 4 stitches, and we're basically going to do 2 in the first one and then 1 in the next 8. So I'll show you that slowly first. So 2 in this one and then just 1 in the next 8. So I'll count 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. Another increase, so 2 in the next one. This is our second one, and then 1 in the next 8. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. So that's 2 increases. Our third increase, so 2 in this one and then 1 in the next 8. 1, 2, 3, some of my hair, that. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that was our third increase, which, as you can see, that seems about right. So we have our last one, our fourth increase. So we have 2 in this one, and then just 8 individual stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, it's looking good. 7, I counted right somewhere, and 8. I'm going to move my stitch marker up now because there is no more increases. But because it works in a spiral system, you still have to keep moving this stitch marker from now on. We now have, let me count, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 rounds where it's just 1 double crochet into each stitch. That is before I change the colour. So if you're skipping forward, we're just doing 5 and then we're going to do a colour change. So off we go. I thought to be really organised and put everything in front of me. One thing I haven't, I guess you can guess what it is. It's a pen, so I could mark it down. That's not the end of the world. I can move things around. Sometimes I've used objects to count when I've been doing things like this. Like, oh, scissors, that's 1, and then it'd be chocolate orange, that'd be 2. So I'll probably do that. So nice and comfortable with this, nice and relaxed. Try not to make it too tight because otherwise it's not going to squeeze over. Although this is an acrylic yarn and it's quite sort of forgiving in that respect, you can get quite a bit of a stretch with it. If you're using a cotton, you're not going to get that stretch. So you do need to double check your sizing as you go. I mean, this is already starting to curl round. It's curling in the wrong direction at the moment, so we will have to alter that and push it back through the right way in a minute or 2, but not just yet. We're almost round at that point, and this will be round 1. As I said, because it's a double crochet project, it is going to take a little bit longer than some of my others, because some of my other chocolate orange covers I've done in half trebles, so obviously that moves a little bit faster. Shall I use my scissors? I'm counting 1, that's my scissors. So second round. You see how it's starting to curve nicely. I'll push it out after this one, I think. So off we go. Just 1 double crochet into each one. As I say, we're doing 5. So if you're skipping forward or if you're pausing while you do yours and then come back to me, whichever way works for yourself. Must remember to leave a message for the lady who asked for the cat as well. So make sure she knows I've got it. I mean, why I've not done a cat before is beyond me, because obviously I've done my little amigurumi cat, and he's the same colour as this one actually. Because, like I say, I am definitely quite a cat person. My cat's asleep in here at the moment. I'm hoping she's going to behave. I've left her and I've shut the door, so the dog's on the other side of the door. But the cat was already asleep when I came in here, so I've left her there. So it doesn't seem to have noticed I'm here. If she notices and she sees the yarn running, then I'm going to have a problem. As some of you have already met Pippi, she occasionally appears on a video when she feels like it. We're really round. Now this is number 2 that is just finishing. So as I say, I haven't got a pen. I will say chocolate orange. I think I'm a very strange form of counting, scissor and chocolate orange. Now I'm going to push this curve out a little bit. When I want to measure on the chocolate orange, it's going to throw my counting out. Never mind. So that was our second one. I'm now on with my third round. As I say, it does take a little bit longer. The reason I decided to stay with double crochets is because when we change the colour, you will always, I mean, there are some people who can change colour brilliantly and you can barely see where the change is, but it's not an easy thing to get that colour change without seeing a step, particularly when you're working in a spiral system. You can start where you can sort of slip stitch and then X amount of chain and then set off again, but I do think that can look quite messy and I don't like that. That is why I prefer the amigurumi system. But you can't really get away with it for change of yarn above a double crochet. If you're just doing it spiral, it will always have a little drop. This has a little drop, but obviously you don't see it as much if it's double crochet. If it was a half treble and a treble, it would be seen. Not that you would be doing a amigurumi style with a full treble. You can get away with it with half trebles, but treble doesn't really work. Not without looking messy again. So we're really round on our third one. We're going to use for number 3, I don't know, the cotton. The cotton is number 3. So that's 3 rounds. You see, not far off. You can see the shape coming. We'll get the 5 done and then we'll try it on the orange. So I'm on the third. I'm not, look, it's 3. It's scissors, orange and cotton. That's 3. It's a strange form of counting. So that means we've got to be on number 4 now. It would make a cute doll's hat. I'm just wondering how small I could go. I think it's like I say those little cheeky bits or whatever they are that I just think I was pleased. I wasn't sure at first. I'm thinking, shall I, shan't I? And I made them, and when I stitched them on, I'm like, yes, right decision there. Yep, we're definitely getting a nice shape there. I presume people are going to be getting some of these in their Christmas presents this year. I know there's been quite a lot of people doing the snowman one that I've got, and some of the little ones, the Ferrero Rocher ones. I don't think I want to do them in cat size. I might do, I don't know. Again, I could do a basic cat, but it's things like ears and things do get difficult if you're using this sort of thickness of yarn. And I think for the tutorials, I like to keep to a double knit, minimum of a 4 ply, because it's something everybody has in. Right, pink cotton is number 4. We're on my final round now, but not everybody has a smaller yarn than that in their home. So I wanted to make it so you didn't necessarily have to go out and buy a specialist yarn. You can just probably pick some up from your yarn stash. Because if you're like most crafters who work with yarn, you'll have got quite a lot of that. We have a tendency to pick it up in sort of strange places. Sort of, we see them on offer and go, oh, I'll have one of those. Do I need it? No. Do I want it? Of course I do. So we do have stashes of yarn, I am sure, bits and bobs. And as you say, you can do your cat any colour you want. I think if I did a black cat, I think I might have a tendency to do some little green beads to give it some little shiny green eyes. That would be quite nice. So to give it a little bit more sort of depth of it, rather than it just being sort of a solid sort of colour. In my Pippi, who was asleep here, she's black and white, and she's got like these tuxedo markings. So I suppose I could sort of work something out and do a little tuxedo cat. That'd be quite cute. Right, we're on my final round before I try it, aren't I? Then I can move my orange out of the counting equation there. Almost round to our stitch marker, of which I need to move actually. Let's have a look. How are we fitting? Yeah, I think that's fitting nice. As I say, this is when it's going to come down to depending on your tension, because I'm saying X amount of stitches, you might find you want one less or you might want one more, so you just keep trying it on. So we're going to actually take the stitch marker out because I'm changing colour, aren't I? So I don't really need a stitch marker. Now if I look at the back of this, there's not a big step, but you do get a tiny step when you're working in that system, but you know, I don't think that's bad. I think it's quite neat. It's better than the sort of stop-start, which I don't like. I am not going to cut this off because I'm going to use it in a minute. It means it's a bit fiddly because you're running 2 balls of wool, but it means you've got less sewing in. That's always a benefit, always. Now, I don't normally sit with my wool like this, so I'm hoping it's not going to tangle up between the 2 of them. So I've now gone for my darker colour, got it on my hand ready. And basically, I'm just going to pull it through that to start with. There are different methods, but that works for me. Yeah. And we're going to tighten that up around in the dark grey. There's actually 2 rounds I've done for each stripe. You can do whatever combination you want. If you're really good at changing colours, you could do all sorts of facial features. But for now, we're just going to go round with 1 double crochet in each, in the dark grey. Oh, I've got a bit squeaky wool now, it's squeaking. I don't think you'll hear that on the video, but I can hear just this slight squeak. I didn't think I'd end up getting this video done today because I know I'd said I would do it, so that's why I am doing it now. But because my Cindy dolls appeared, the reboot Cindy dolls that have just come out, we've been waiting ages and ages and ages, and I got them all delivered this morning, so I was like, yay! So I had to do a video for the doll first, although there's 6 of them and I've done a video for 1, and she's very beautiful. If you do like dolls, have a nosy at the video, see what you think. She's still got that vintage look, but with a modern style. We are almost round. So that is 1 round of stripe. Now I'm going to just tie these 2 before I go any further to make sure they don't come undone. So I'm going to be using this in a minute, so don't get it tangled up. So I'm going to do another round in the grey. I've not popped the oh, my one nearly fell off that table then. I've not put this stitch marker in because I can just very slightly see where there's been a changeover, so I'll just use that as my guide from now on. Now I've put 2 stripes in this, so when we get round on this one, we're going to go back to the pale grey, and then we'll do another one and we'll have a look how it's fitting. I don't know about you, I mean my tension's generally quite even, but there are days for some reason I seem to either relax more or I'm more tense, so my tension can alter from day to day. It's always fatal if you say you're making a blanket and you've made, like, I don't know, I did this myself when I first started crocheting. I'd made sort of like 50 squares that I never put into a blanket, and then I thought, oh, I'll carry on, I'll get some more done. But because I'd been crocheting, it'd been nearly 2 years, the difference in my tension was massive, so I couldn't actually join the square to square because I'd changed that much. So always make sure you finish your job because your tension will definitely change. I think after so many years it stays standard, but to start with it can do that. Nearly round. Couple more. 1 and 2, and I'm going there. Now because I didn't sort of cut my grey up, I can just pick it up now, but I want the dark grey to go away from it, so I need it so it sort of does twist a bit here. This is why I'm saying it's normally I'll have it in 2 separate containers, makes it easier. So this is going to get a little bit twisty. Let's pull that tight and let's get going. A round of pale grey. Now I do need to make sure that that is not going to come undone, so when I get all the way around I'm going to tie it to this as well. You can just thread it through if you wish. Whichever method of changing colour works for you, please do it. Because I know there's quite a few people do it different ways, and it's whatever feels comfortable. We're not doing too bad actually, 23 minutes. And we're almost done on the body of him. There's not many more rounds to go. I have made the pattern out, which when I've finished doing the video and started uploading it, I will get it on, so you can actually download it from my site. It's there to purchase, so it'll give you the full instructions. In fact, in a second when I get round, I'm just going to grab something. Let's go round, nearly there. And so the yarn in there is giving me the stitch marker positioning rather than a stitch marker. I have another pattern going up, which I did a little gnome Ferrero Rocher cover, if you've seen him. So let me just say that's it. So I'm going to do another round of that. I'm just going to pop it down for a second. I just want to grab something. That's if I can find it quick enough. I've got it, I've got it. Right, so I was thinking of doing this for a tutorial, but there's a lot of sort of components to it. I'm just going to pinch the orange and put it in so I can show him you. And there he is. I was really quite pleased with him. It does take a lot of doing, and so for a video, I don't know, I suppose it's not going to take much longer than this, but the beard side of it would take absolutely ages. But I've made the pattern and I'm going to be putting it up again. When I put the cat one up, it's ready. I'll pop them both on the site for people to buy if they want a hard written pattern. So, Come on, Nomi, let me have... He stands quite nicely actually as well, so you don't have to have a chocolate orange or anything in him, so he's quite cute for that. So he's a nice Christmas decoration, if nothing else. You could pop a surprise present or something under there. Right, so we did one round in the pale grey. We are now carefully trying not to tangle it, can you see, because it's very easy to tangle, and we're going to do another round in pale grey. So as I say, I'm just doing a 2 round changeover for the stripes. You can start stripes from the top if you want. You just have to mark off what rows you've actually got. It's actually not getting too tangled. I thought it would. So we're almost round, and we're going to go back to the dark grey just one more time. Nearly lost where I was then. There I am. I'm in the right place. I could do with my stitch marker in. No, I couldn't. I don't need it. I just wasn't concentrating. For the actual video usage, I'll probably only do one ear, because obviously they're both the same. But for the little muzzle, I might have to do 2, because I've got to sort of show you what I did. I'm sure you could probably work it out, but I have to remember there are different levels of people crocheting on here. Right, we're almost round. That is round. Yep, I'm just stopping a second because I do need to make sure that everything's going to... No, I don't think I need to tie that off just yet. Right, so move the pale to the back, move the dark to the front. And we're just going to go straight into the next stitch. Oh, we're not, so I'm going to drop it. And we're going to pull it through. It doesn't want to go. If we pulled that tight, it would help. Right. I shouldn't have done it that way. Why did I do that? I don't do that. Right, pull it through that. That's how I do mine. It won't possess me to do it in a different way. But again, whichever style suits you. Pull that nice and tight before we set it off. And off we go. So we have 2 rounds in the dark grey again. Can't believe the cat's behaving and still staying asleep. It's not that far off. Mind you, I'm usually videoing earlier in the day, whereas obviously I'm videoing sort of, it's going towards tea time at the moment. So perhaps it's, I don't know, she's tendency to sleep at this time. I think she keeps peeping at me. I keep seeing her eyes opening. But the only thing is, we're not getting far off dinner time. They're usually fed around 6. So it's not going to be long before she's going to realise it's time for food. And she certainly doesn't miss out where food's concerned. Right, so almost round on this next round of dark grey. Nearly there. I said I was going to measure it, didn't I? And I've not measured it. I'll get round this one and then I'll measure it. Hope you're all keeping safe and well still. I know different countries are sort of different levels with this virus at the moment, as is a strange one because we're in lockdown at the moment. But then we're sort of coming out of lockdown on the 2nd of December, but then we've still got to follow certain rules. So it's a little bit confusing, I'm afraid. Right, let's try it on. Yeah, so I think this is going to be about right. We've got one more round in the dark, and then just to finish off with 2 rounds in the pale grey. So if you're sort of whizzing off in front of me, that's another 3 rounds. Or until it fits your orange, because as I say, you'll all be slightly different. Some of you might need an extra round and some of you won't. It's starting to look quite festive around here now as well, because a lot of people are popping their Christmas trees up. I think probably it's just to cheer them up. Sort of, it's been a bit doom and gloom, hasn't it? And it's nice to see the lights. We're not putting ours up there though. No way. It's going to be the 1st of December. I will start to prepare things. but I don't like the tree up too early. Apart from that, it's something to clean round, and I get bored of it by that point anyway. I like Christmas to be a little bit nearer the time, you know, to feel Christmassy, should I say. Careful I don't just go past it because I'm not concentrating. No, I'm not quite there yet. Yeah, a couple more, and then we're back to the final colour for the last time, just to finish off till you get to the bottom. Right, I'm going to go there. I can now cut the dark one off because I'm not going to be using that. I'm also going to move it because it's tangling up inside my other one. And I'm going to be continuing with just the pale grey. But this dark grey, I need to tie off onto something because otherwise it's going to just run open. So I'm going to do a little knot there. That's it. Are we ready? Back with the pale grey for our last 2 rounds. To decide what I'm doing next week. I've still not decided. There's so many things I want to do. It's sort of keeping on top of it sometimes. Every time I have an idea for something, I write it down, but then my list just gets longer and I don't actually get it finished. I wanted to really do some dolly stuff for next week, so I really do need to think about that. I'm going to try one more try on the orange actually before I do that final round, which I do recommend you do, because there's a chance this could be enough for yourself, or you might need to add. It doesn't half make me sleepy when I sit staring at myself doing double crochet stitches when it's just round and round and round. If you're in trouble sleeping at night, just sit and do this because it will set you off sleepy. Right, we're nearly there. Let's have a quick nosy. Oh, actually, you know, I think the thing at the test is I sometimes sort of sit my orange up on a sort of a ledge or something and make sure it sort of sits. I think that could be enough. I don't know why, for some reason. As I said, sometimes tension varies from day to day. I do have a tendency to be tighter when I first make something, but I think that would actually do. That's why you must always try it on your orange. So I'm going to finish off there. So I'll move that one out of the way for now. I will need it in a second. I finish off with a slip stitch because it's just something I choose to do, whichever way you want. And I'm going to fasten that off. Now, obviously in the patterns, it now says fasten and sew in all loose ends. But just for demonstration purposes, we're not going to bother with that. So you would need to be tidying it up at that point. Let's pop it back over our orange. And I'm quite happy with that. I think that works nicely. I'm going to grab this one back. I'm just thinking something might be quite nice. You do sort of one dark grey ear and one light grey ear. So we're going to move on to our ears. So I've got my paper here. I've actually been organised. I've got my pattern typed up before I did it. Quite often I'm working off sort of a rough pattern and then I type it up after. But it is actually done in advance. We're going to start with slip knot and 2 chain. We are going to do our 6 into that first chain. 1, 2, just like you start at the top. 3, 4, 5 and 6. We now need to do just 1 double crochet in each of those 6, so it's still 6 stitches. Gives you a bit more of a point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. A little bit awkward to hold at this point. I'm just going to tighten up my knot and I'm then going to push this over my little finger just to turn it the right way around. It makes it a little bit easier to work in. We're going to do an increase next, but only of 3 stitches. So you're going to do 2 in the first one, 1 in the second one, times 3 to give us 9 stitches. So we have 2, we have 1, we have 2, we have 1. Last time we have 2, and we have 1. We're going to have another increase, and it's going to be 2 in the first one and then 1 in the next 2 times 3 to give us 12 stitches. So we're going to do 2 in 1, then a 1 and a 1. That's our first set. We do that again. We have a 2, and then we have a 1 and a 1. Last time we're going to have a 2, and we're going to have a 1 and a 1. So we've now increased up to 12 stitches. We're going to do that increase system once more, but this time you're going to have a 2 and then 1, 2, 3, and we're going to do that set 3 times. So you're going to have a 2 and then 1, 2 and 3. That's our first set. We're going to do that again. So we're going to have a 2, then we're going to have a 1, 1 and 1, so it's 3 single ones. We're going to have a 2, and the last time we're going to count 1, 1 and 1. We're going to just do 1 double crochet into each of those 15 and you've finished. And obviously you need to do 2, so I count 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 and 15, and a slip stitch to finish. Okay, so that is your ear. It gives you quite a nice little point, because obviously your cat ear is going to be a little bit more pointy than if you're doing your bears or anything like that. So it gives us enough of a point. Now, entirely up to you. If you're putting felt on, you might not want to, but if you are putting your felt on, sometimes it's easier to stitch it on at this point, but you might want to stitch it onto the sort of head to get its positioning. That is entirely up to you. So I'm going to put that to one side. If you don't like stitching it on, I mean, with this I've just done some little over stitches. If you don't like to stitch it on, you could glue it on quite happily, but again, just think about who's having it if it's a gift for someone. So you can see we have one ear, so I'm quite pleased with that. Now I keep this bit to the side because that's the bit I'm going to use to sew up. This we don't need, so make sure it's really tight. I'm going to trim it off and we're going to sew it on. So I've got a standard wool needle. I like a quite small one because I like quite a tight point here. It's sometimes harder to thread through, but it gives you a better point, so your stitching is better. That is why I prefer that. We have to decide, it's sometimes easier to do it while it's on the orange. Decide roughly where it's going. So I'm going to go there. I'm going to fold it flat, and then I'm going to pick up the stitches. I'm only going to pick up the outer part of each stitch. It's a little bit hard to see at that point. I'm hoping you can see it okay there. I'm just picking up one bit and picking up the other bit. Now again, you may have your own way of sewing up, so please go with whatever feels comfortable for yourself. It's moving off there a bit. Let's tighten it over that orange. And then it's probably maybe one more stitch. Make sure you get right to the end, because otherwise, can you see, we have our little ear there. So again, whichever way suits you for sewing up. I'm not going to do any more of that at the moment. I'm just going to thread that through out of the way so we don't have to look at it. And I'll move that there. Right, it's time for the little mouth sort of area. These are just two little circles. There is nothing more to it. It's just the stitching on that sort of is not tricky, but its positioning, it can be a little bit of a pain. So slip knot on, and we're going to do, yes, our 2 chain. And we're going to do our 6 double crochet into our first one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Tighten it up. We're now going to do 2 in each to give us 12. That's our first one. Our second one, this wool feels very different from the grey. Our third one, it's the same brand. Our fourth, fifth, and sixth. How quick was that? And that is it. We're going to do a slip stitch join. Tighten up everything there, make sure it's really tight because it can come undone. Make sure you're leaving enough yarn to actually be able to stitch it onto the cat. Ta-da! And you've got your first little one. We'll do the other one as well because that only took a second or two. We're on 40 minutes on the video. I thought it would take a little bit longer than my normal ones. So here we go. So we're going to do 2 into the first one. We're going to do 6 double crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Tighten it up and 2 in each. Shouldn't have tied it up so tight, I can't get in it now. There we go, I've done it. So we've got 1, 2, it's a terrible colour to see, I know when you're watching it. 3, 4, 5, and the last one is 6, and slip stitch finish. Just flattens it off a little bit, I think. Make sure we left enough to sew on. It just flattens it a bit better, I think, if you do a slip stitch rather than just leaving it on that double crochet. So we have our 2 little whatevers they are. I don't really know what to call them. So let's have a go. We don't need this, but don't cut it too short because just in case it loosens, so you could still pull it. So we can get rid of that bit, and we can get rid of that bit. And let's have a look at our little cat here. So we need to decide roughly where it's going. I've sort of done the bottom part so it sits on this sort of grey area here. I've also positioned it so I can start stitching at the bottom. I mean, one way you could do it, I'll just pinch this at the minute, you could have a look at positioning it first, make sure you're happy with it, sort of like that. And so just pin it into place. If you're happy with that, you can then start to stitch round. So I am happy with that, so I'm going to take that one off for now, and while that's still in, I'm going to thread it up. And I've split my yarn. That's not a good thing to do. Perhaps I shouldn't do it while it's sat on there, because that's making life difficult really, isn't it? Right, there we go. I'm trying not to pull that off because I want it in that position. Okay, now again, I'm just going to pick up a piece from there and just the front part of the stitch. This we can just tuck in as we go, so we can just get rid of that. I might not want to do it that way, we'll take it around there for now. So just picking up the top part. It makes it stick out a little bit more if you just pick up I mean, when I'm saying top part, if you're not sure, if you look on your stitch, there's like 2 parts to it. I think we could be able to shove that inside now. Oh, one in, there we go. So I'm picking it up and just picking the top part of the stitch up. I think I'll just sew the one on to show you. I don't want to sit watching me. I'm pulling it towards myself again. I'm a nightmare for that when I'm stitching things up, because that's where I would naturally stitch rather than leaning forward. Almost round. Just do a couple more stitches. You can hear people sort of pottering around at the minute, and the cat's starting to look. She knows it's coming up to that time for food. Right, so I'm just going to do a little knot there. Pull it tight, nice and tight, and I'm just going to thread it back through. Just slightly over and thread it back through again, because I don't want it coming off. and snip. And that is as simple as it is to actually put on this little cheek bit. You could actually leave it at that, because some people just sort of have a round bit and then pop little nose in the middle. That's what I was thinking of doing originally, but then it changed into this. Now, as far as the actual whiskers are concerned, I'll show you on the one side. Well, I will if I find my needle. You know, dog's definitely rustling about behind door as well now. Although saying that, my stomach's starting to rumble, so I can't blame him really. So I'm going to tie a knot in that, because I want it not to come through when we do it. Make sure it's a knot that's not going to move. But we also don't want it to show, because it is a darker colour going in. Let's trim that bit off. So for these actual whiskers, all I did was, I'm just going to try and find a little space. There's a better space. That's one there. And I'm going to take it about thus far and pull it through, because I need this knot to go through. Now, if it won't go through, sometimes you can take your scissors or a needle and push it through. If your knot is way too big, you may have to sort of re-knot it. It's not going to go in, is it? That's because it's not a bad thing, but let me take that orange out. But because my stitching is quite tight when I'm sewing something on, it doesn't leave much of a space. There we go. It's in now. Then just pull that back into place. So all I did is I pushed that through, so the knot's inside there now. And I just went over, back through. And over and back through. And that's basically it. Then I just took it to the center point, which ideally you need to sew the other one on. And then I just went over a couple of times over the two where they joined to make the little line in the center there. And then obviously just sewing on. Try and avoid getting too many knots. You can't really avoid some of it, I'm afraid. And just stitch on the two little eyes. And that is it. That is your little chocolate orange pussycat. I'll finish this one later, because I really do need to sew on that other side and make sure I get the ear in the right place, because normally I'd sew both ears on, then both muzzles, so you've got a center point, whereas because I was demonstrating, I've only done one of each. So I hope you enjoyed him. I hope you think he's cute. I really am pleased with it quite a lot. I think I'm keeping this one for myself. If you did enjoy it, please like, subscribe and share. Click on the notification bell if you want to see any other products that I'm going to be doing, because I've got a few more Christmassy sort of chocolate orangey or whatever coming up, so there's going to be more of this type of work. And thank you for watching again, and see you all very soon. Bye.